A homeowner association banned the Second Amendment from the HOA neighborhood and tried to take away everyone's firearms. This dude even broke into my house to try and steal my guns. Here is what happened. Subscribe to Ripe on YouTube and hit the bell to turn on notifications. The title story starts like this. I've been a lurker here for a while and I noticed that a lot of HOA presidents like to make rules that might toe the line between legal and illegal. I don't think I have yet to see anybody else go through what I did, where my HOA president tried to break the actual constitutional rights of the people though. I was never too keen on living in an HOA neighborhood, but due to life working out that way, I ended up in one. Before I talk about the HOA, I'm just gonna tell you a little bit about me first. I am an Iraq veteran who does not really like it when people act like bullies. I was always a pretty tough guy, but since getting back, I wanted to enjoy the calmer things in life. I love driving my truck out to the mountains and getting some old-fashioned fresh air. I also keep guns in my house that vary in size and purpose. One of them is a handgun I keep for my own protection, and one is a rifle that I have mounted along with my other gear that I am proud of. Some are just display guns and so old that I don't even think ammo is made for them anymore. Now, my HOA has had more veterans moving in the last 5 years or so, and it is clear that the HOA president is not too happy about that fact. We like to keep flags on our door for pride, and I will admit sometimes on holidays we are known to get a little bit too loud and rowdy. We are not perfect, but then again, nobody is. The HOA president, though, has been trying to figure out a way to change things in a way that would make the neighborhood seem like we don't really exist. An example of this is that he hates my truck for just existing and not being a car or SUV like a lot of other people. He wanted to get rid of it and hired a tow truck to take it out of my own driveway and away. He claimed that it was an unknown vehicle. The owner, aka me, requested to be removed. That was the first really big fight I had with the HOA that ended up with them giving me back my truck because they realized it was theft and I could sue them for it. They also hated the fact that me, along with the other veterans, had guns. I just want to make one thing really clear, and that is we did not carry around our guns outside of our homes. We would take others inside to show them and we would talk about them. They really would not end up outside or be considered any real danger. The HOA held a board meeting and decided that they were going to outlaw guns in the neighborhood entirely. Some people that had guns and were not veterans did not know better and actually gave up their guns to the HOA. For those of you that don't know much about the law, the Second Amendment of the Constitution gives us the right to bear arms. The HOA was obviously not allowed to take that right away from us, and we all knew it. Almost every veteran refused to give up their guns due to the Second Amendment. The HOA president kept saying that his rules went over that and he could ban guns if he wanted to. We knew that everything he was saying was BS, so I decided to get together with the other veterans and planned to stand up to this president. Our original plan was basically going to start a suit against him, saying he was trying to take away our guns illegally. However, we never had a chance to get that off the ground because of what he did one night when I was not home. He must have not known that I had cameras because he snuck into my house and put all of my guns in a bag. The only one he could not get was my handgun, since it was in a safe. I was fuming that somebody could disrespect a veteran that badly by going into his home and stealing his property. I was not scared to fight this guy because I knew he already hated me and we were just going at each other's throats before this event. So this was my last straw and I was not gonna let him just walk away from it. Instead of just a lawsuit against the HOA, I was suing the president directly for breaking into my house in order to steal from me. He was trying to block my rights as an American and people in the neighborhood were not happy. Even some neighbors that had no military connection could not believe that he did something like that and were angry. We had people that did not even own guns signing on to help us sue the HOA for trying to stop us from expressing our Second Amendment rights. I think they had a lawyer, but I didn't care because I knew that any judge would see that he was trying to go over federal law for his own petty reasons. In court against me, the HOA president admitted to breaking into my house and stealing my guns. His reasoning was it was a danger to the neighborhood and part of his job was to keep everybody safe. I will admit he put up a good performance, but it really did not matter since I caught him red-handed. He was told to give me back all of my guns and that he was gonna end up doing community service for breaking into my house. He was not done yet because he still had to deal with the whole neighborhood going after him and wanting blood. He really tried to show the bylaws that he made, stating that this HOA was not allowed to have guns. His reasoning is that if we wanted to keep our guns, there was nothing stopping us from moving out and leaving the neighborhood. Now, I realized that his main goal all along was to try and drive us out of the neighborhood. Thinking the gun rule would upset us so much, we might just give up and move away. Our lawyer stated that HOA rules were not allowed to override federal ones and he couldn't stop people from using their Second Amendment rights. The only time he could do something is if there was an actual threat, and in that case he should call the police to handle it. The part that took the most time was that everybody in the neighborhood that wanted to get their guns back or keep them had to show proof of ownership and license. I agree having that is important, but doing it for everybody all at once was a really slow process. After that, the HOA president was clearly not wanted anymore and luckily stepped down willingly instead of us having to make him. Other board members that had followed his lead on the gun bylaws followed him out. Now, the HOA board is mostly made up of veterans and they really are doing their part to keep the neighborhood a nice place. Any new rules that they make seem to make a lot of sense and are agreed on with most of the community. For example, a lot of neighbors had complaints about yard work being done and things like leaves and sticks being blown into the street. So the new HOA made a rule basically stating that you had to clean up after your own yard work. It made me think for the first time that an HOA could actually be useful if it is run by the right people. And yeah, ripe stars, I guess in some sense that is certainly true, but I would still very much prefer to live in a neighborhood without any sort of HOA at all. I don't really need others to tell me how I have to live my life or when I have to mow my lawn or anything like that. Anyway, let's continue on to the next one. This one is titled, Don't Treat Me Bad on Vacation. So I am 38 female vacationing with my mother, 71 female, in Europe right now, and she just told me this epic story that I must now pass down to all of you. Some background, my mother is a very nice person to strangers, especially salespeople. Aggressive salespeople will back her into a corner for an hour until I come rescue her because she doesn't want to be rude. My father passed away a few years ago at age 81 and he was born in Egypt and was schooled in both French and Arabic and considered both to be his native languages, and then also learned English as an adult when he moved to the US. A few years after they got married in 1976, but before they had kids, they took a vacation to Paris. My mother collects stamps and she wanted some French plate blocks to add to her collection. She left my father napping in the hotel room and went to the post office a block away, planning on spending $300 to $400 on stamps. She got to the post office and waited in a very long line. When she finally got to the front, the woman behind the counter told her in perfect English that she did not speak English, so my mom waited for another post employee to become free. The second employee finally became available, but was very rude to my mother, telling her that she couldn't help her, couldn't sell her this, out of stock, out of that, etc., while rolling her eyes and being otherwise nasty and rude, nearly bringing my mother to tears. My mother was so upset that she decided to get revenge. She went back to the hotel room and woke up my father and brought him to the post office. My mother waited until the rude woman was available and had my dad translate in perfect French, telling the woman that my mom wanted the plate block of every set of stamps she had, watching her remove the plate block from each sheet. For those of you that don't know, when you remove the plate block from a sheet of stamps, the remaining stamps must be counted by hand. After the nasty woman had a nice stack of plate blocks for my mother, one of every stamp design they had, my mother turned to my father and said, "Tell her I have changed my mind." Not only did that woman miss out on a huge sale for being mean and nasty, but she also had to spend a good 30 to 60 minutes after closing to hand count each individual stamp after they closed for the day. I'm just so proud of my very polite mother right now. And the next one is titled, I Busted My Neighbor. I live in a semi-detached house and share a driveway. When I first moved in, an older British couple lived next door. I got along with them great, and then the wife passed and the husband moved to an apartment and sold the house to someone I will call Cece. Initially, there were no issues with Cici, but sometimes she did things that annoyed me. However, for the most part, I was able to ignore her and her extended family. On one occasion, though, I found the roof of my spouse's car dented after it was left on the street. On another occasion, I found damage to my spouse's car, and the easiest explanation was that if someone backed out of Cici's driveway without looking. I did not have any firm evidence, just circumstantial evidence. So then I installed a camera, no audio, just video, on my garage that looked out over the shared driveway and the street. I then went and told all of my neighbors about the damage to the car and the new camera. Nobody verbalized any concerns and nobody admitted to the damage, but by the end of the next week, Cici listed her house for sale and it closed quite quickly and I had a new neighbor. Now, Cici was a realtor and should have known the law about vacating her old house, but she was still making trips with her stuff long after the new owner showed up. Cici suing the new owner because she had left stuff behind that she was trying to recover. On one morning, as I was leaving for work, I saw the legal papers on the windshield of the new owner's car. So I made a point of asking about them. That is when I learned about all of the drama and the ongoing issues. The new owner indicated that they were gonna have to document everything to defend themselves in court. This is where the petty revenge came in. I asked if the new neighbor wanted video footage. I provided footage of multiple loads of furniture being moved past the deadline. I provided footage of Cici's sister sneaking across my property to try and serve the new neighbor and then illegally leaving the paperwork on the car. In addition, I also provided footage of Cici driving by at random times. With the footage that I provided, the case was awarded to my new neighbor that had to countersue Cici. And the next one is titled Revenge on Car Dealer. This happened a while back. I decided to get a new car. I found out about the new models that were coming out in about 6 weeks and I could wait that long, so I spec'd out what I wanted, cut a deal including my trade-in and ordered a new car. Several weeks later, I was out driving and some nummy blew a red light and T-boned me. My car was not drivable, so I just had it towed to the dealer and then left town on a 2-week work assignment. When I got back, I went to the car dealer to talk about repairs to my car and was shocked when they said it was all fixed. I asked how they could do that without my authorization and they told me that repairs had been authorized by the insurance adjuster for the company of the guy that hit me. I asked to see the car and it looked good except for one big dent that was not repaired. I then asked why they had not fixed it and they said that that dent was not a part of the accident. I said it was and they disagreed. They demanded that I sign a liability release for the insurance company and I refused. They said I only had 2 choices, sign the liability release and take the car as is or pay cash for the work they had done. I totally refused and they said I could not have my car. I went home, got my spare key and went back to the dealer, drove my car off the lot and went home. Just as I got home, I got a call from the dealer. I was expecting a pissed-off body shop manager, but it was a cheerful salesman telling me that my new car had arrived. I drove back to the dealer, gave them the title to my old car, paid the difference and drove my new car home. A week later, the body shop manager called me and said that they had been cruising my neighborhood looking for my old car and sooner or later they would find it and tow it. He told me he had placed a mechanic's lien on the title and I would not be able to sell the car without paying him. Meanwhile, the car is sitting on their used car lot. Eventually, the car sold and when the buyer went to title it, he discovered that the dealership that sold him the car had a lien on the title. He sued the dealership. After that, the body shop manager called me and said, "I guess you got us." He told me that the insurance company had issued them a check payable jointly to me and the dealer and asked me to be a good guy and endorse the check and sign the liability release. I said no. He called me a butthole and said he would just sign the check and release himself. He told me, "The insurance company doesn't know what your signature looks like." Then he called me a butthole again. I called the insurance company and asked to speak to the fraud department. They promptly connected me to some lawyer and I told him the full story. He really got interested at the part about the body shop manager saying he would forge my signature on the check. About a month later, an investigator came to my house and showed me a check and asked if it was my signature. I told him it wasn't and he asked if I would make a sworn statement to that effect. I agreed. The body shop manager was fired and was subsequently charged with insurance fraud and forgery. He claimed that his boss had forced him to do it and had a witness that backed him up. His boss got fired. The body shop manager got 180 days in jail. Karma is sweet. And yeah, Ripe Stars, as usual, it is very sweet indeed to see douchebags and scammers getting what they deserve. And 180 days in jail is really not bad. That dude totally deserved it. But either way, if you enjoyed the video, I would very much appreciate it if you could drop a like and maybe even a comment, because that would help me tremendously. Thank you so much in advance, and I hope to see you again tomorrow. The next one is titled Entitled Neighbor Caught by His Own Police Call. So, a few years back, I, 20 male, had a small 2-room flat in a very old building in which you could hear everything. My bedroom was right next to the wall of my neighbor's 27 male flat. He was a lunatic who played video games until 4 or 5 AM. And he had some kind of problem with losing in multiplayer games, so every time he would lose, he would start screaming, throwing things around and punching the wall, waking me up almost every night. At the time I was doing 2 jobs and needed every second of sleep I could get. I tried talking to him on several occasions, but nothing helped. One time, when I was out for work, I even left my sound system run a mix of artillery and machine gun barrages just to show him how annoying this stuff could be. But as entitled people are, it did not do any good. Fast forward about a few months and nothing improved. And I was getting crazy about this. One Saturday night I had a little poker game running in my flat with a few friends, and my neighbor was having one of his usual tantrums. Since I had guests and they didn't like that we turned up the music, everybody listened something different, so there was a good mix of death metal, techno, industrial and hardcore. My neighbor was furious at some point and apparently called the police to file a noise complaint. Luckily, when they pulled up, one of my guys saw them driving up as he was out for a quick cigarette. Now comes the fun. We turned the music down before they came up, so when they rang the doorbell and I opened, they could not hear anything too noisy, just a few guys having some beers and a little poker game. They told us that there was a noise complaint from a neighbor saying it was too loud and that this was something constant. We told them we have been like this for hours. Then I had a genius idea. I asked them if my neighbor called them, which of course they couldn't answer, but I knew what was what. So I invited the 2 cops in and told them I would show them what real noise disturbance looked like. I led them to my bedroom where one could still hear my neighbor throwing tantrums, and I told the cops the whole story, and since they were already here, that I would like to file a noise complaint against him. The cops were shocked at the noise you could hear from the other flat and went directly over to his flat to tell him to shut the hell up and that he would get reprimanded by written letter to keep the noise down and don't call the police for false emergencies. I had a huge laugh as the cops came back to tell me to call them when he did something like this again, because in that case I would be able to file charges. So long story short, he thought the police would shut me down, instead it was the other way around. I never slept better than that night, and finally I had some peace at home. And I have to say, Ripe Stars, I'm not even sure if this fits into revenge or malicious compliance, but that was absolutely brilliant. However guys, I am curious, how is it for you? When you are losing in games like video games or board games, do you get angry or not? Personally, I really hate losing, so you could say I'm not a good loser, and I think that is something that did not really change since elementary school. Especially these damn board games like Monopoly are really getting me riled up. Maybe that's why I'm not playing them as much anymore. The next one is titled, She Kept Stealing My Washing Powder, so I gave her dye. I don't mind when my roommates borrow my stuff, we have all been there, all I ask is that they replace what they take. You drink my milk? Just buy me a new milk. It is as simple as that. Unfortunately, my roommate does not seem to get this. She keeps taking my stuff, and when I ask her to please replace everything she takes, she will buy one new thing and forget to do it the next time despite having more money than me. I finally snapped when I wanted to wash my clothes, but only found an empty box that used to contain my washing powder. I don't buy fancy or expensive stuff and I don't care about brands. After using the last of my powder a week earlier, she could literally have bought the cheapest no-brand powder in the world and I would have been fine. I just snapped. I had told her over and over again to not use my washing powder if she was not going to replace it, and I just had enough. I bought a new box of washing powder, some Dylan machine dye, and mixed it with a bit of the washing powder and dumped it into the old box. When the dye is dry, it looks like washing powder, especially if you are not expecting it. I took my new box of washing powder to my room and waited. A week later, I came home from work and saw her laundry hanging outside, all with a mysterious pink color. She stomped up to me and demanded to know what I had done. I told her I was going to dye my own clothes and someone had told me the shade would be lighter if I mixed it with powder. Lie. Then asked her why she had used it when it had clearly been in a box with my name on it when I had told her not to use it because she never replaced it. I don't think she believed me, but she finally got the message. She almost never takes my stuff now, and when she does, she is quick to replace it.